National Broadcasting Company brings you the last chapter in a 4-part version of George Meredith's Diana of the Crossways. Another in our series of books that live the world's great novels.
Our story concerns the fashionable circles of early 19th century London, where wit, culture, and politics held sway, and where deep and lasting friendships between women were rare indeed. But the affection that existed between the brilliant and beautiful Diana Murray Warwick and Lady Emma Dunstane was as sincere as it was unusual. Because of Lady Dunstane's ill health, she spent most of her time at her country estate of Copsley, and depended upon her husband's frequent visits to London to keep her informed of the activities of the social world, in which Diana Warwick, Tony to Lady Dunstane, played a leading part.
Luton, you have a most annoying way of trying to conceal from me facts about Tony which you think would worry me.
Are you referring to some particular thing, my dear?
I am referring to Mr. Percy Dacier. I fear Tony allows him to monopolize her time.
Well, I suppose that depends on how one looks at it, Emma. Diana's very interested in politics. And Mr. Dacier, being a minister of state, they find each other's company very pleasant, I imagine. It's true that she gives dinner parties for Dacier and his friends almost nightly, dinners that will help him politically or socially, but I'm sure that Diana would keep her behavior with Dacier strictly platonic.
Oh, yes, I have Tony's pledge to that.
Huh? Oh, well, then, what's disturbing you?
Tony admitted to me a year ago, when I was so ill, that she loved Percy Dacier and he loved her. She even considered going away with him.
Great heavens. Doesn't that woman realize what that would mean? Warwick's an impossible creature, and I don't blame her for refusing to live under the same roof with him, but they are still bound by marriage.
I think Tony's first consideration was that it would ruin Dacier's career.
It doesn't surprise me. She's always putting those she loves before herself.
But the eyes of London are on Tony. And unless I am greatly mistaken, the tongues of London are now wagging about her and Dacier.
Not everyone talks. Diana has her staunch admirers. But there is a large group who chatter. There's the matter of that wealthy heiress, you know, Constance Asper, niece of Quinton Manx, the shipowner. Tremendously wealthy, and they say she's been waiting for Dacier to marry her for 3 years.
Well, I wish he'd go ahead and do it.
No, Dacier can't see another woman for Diana.
But I don't think Percy Dacier would be the right man for Tony, even if she were to marry. She deserves a different, a stronger person,
Thomas Redwood?
Naturally, I was thinking of him. He has worshipped her since the first night they met, when she was a girl of 18. And he has wealth, position.
All of that. But I fear, my dear, that Diana feels only friendship for the man. In fact, I doubt she suspects that he feels anything else.
Sir Lucan's words were fact indeed. To the steadfast, inscrutable Redworth, Diana turned as a trusting friend. And as the debts of the upkeep of her costly home increased, it was he whom she consulted.
If I seem abrupt this afternoon, Mr. Redworth, I must beg your forgiveness. I've never been able to discuss business matters with social ease.
Oh, there's certainly no cause for apology, but you said business?
Yes. Simply, it is that I've decided to sell the Crossways.
Your birthplace? The home you love so deeply?
Now, I'll admit it would have gone to my heart once. Either I've lost my affection for the place, or I've gotten over my Irish superstitions.
Oh, I see.
I wondered if you would undertake to find a purchaser for the Crossways.
I'm happy to be of service to you in any way.
And now that I've determined to part with the old place, why, the sooner the better. It will be a relief.
Tell me, Mrs. Warwick, how is your latest novel progressing?
Slowly, I fear. It's a difficult subject.
I marvel that you find the time to do your writing.
And often when I have the time, there seems to be no thought.
But you are working on it.
By fits and starts. Oh, I almost forgot, Mr. Redworth.
Yes?
I've mislaid my receipts and must ask you for the address of your wine merchant. Or would you place the order for me? Several dozen of the same wines. I can trust him to be in awe of you, and the good repute of my table depends on his honesty.
Within a week, to Diana's great relief, news came that a hermit bachelor, an acquaintance of Mr. Redworth, had purchased a Crossways at an excellent sum, and the money had been paid into her bank. And so, closing her mind to the fact that this sum represented the last of her capital, Diana swept through the following months with lavish entertainments. Late one afternoon, she was surprised by the arrival of Lady Dunstane at her door.
But, Emmy, not even to tell me you were coming.
I planned it so. My hotel is Maitland's. Excellent.
Oh, but you must stay with me. I have much room.
I know, dear. But I fear I should be a clog and fret you.
Oh, such a thing for you to say.
I'll be happier at the hotel. You have to write, and you so often entertain at night.
Yes, I have been entertaining a great deal lately. But the reason for that is that Percy is harassed and requires enlivening. These corn law agitations. He relaxes, at least in the evenings here. He brings his friends. My house is open to them if it amuses him.
But tell me...
I know what you're going to say, Emmy. But I no longer care what the world says. I know I'm doing the right and honest thing, and I owe Percy too much not to help him.
Well, perhaps the world will soon cease wagging its tongue. You're speaking of... I've heard Mr. Warwick is not well.
The poor man is better, able to go about his affairs, and I am honestly relieved. I may not be a sister of charity, but I'm not a vulture hovering for someone to die. As for me, I do not look ahead. I serve as kind of secretary to Percy. I labor at making abstracts by day, and at night preside at my supper table.
But is he worthy of such devotion, Tony?
Your devotion. He is absolute worthiness. He is the prince of men. We women miss life only when we have to confess we've never met the man to reverence.
Of course, I think of you, Tony, not Mr. Dacier. And I wonder if my girl perhaps gives in excess of what is given in return.
It is expected of our sex.
How your views have changed, Tony.
How I have changed, I admit it. I'm the busy bee at the window pane, content simply to have known him.
The work of the busy bee at the window pane continued through a highly social winter, her novel still unfinished. And after one of her usual dinners, she sat at her desk and forced herself to look at her bank book. Credit presented many blank pages, while debit had reached untold proportions. She compressed her lips and was about to make another attempt at writing when her maid announced that Mr. Dacier had returned and apologized for the late hour.
Have you forgotten to tell me anything I ought to know?
Yes, I returned. But tell me first. You were slightly under a shadow this evening. Dejected.
Did I show it?
To me, you did.
It was nothing, a knot in the book I'm writing. But you?
Shall I tune you with good news? I think it will excuse me for coming back.
Very good news?
Brave news.
Then it concerns you.
Me, you, the country.
Oh, I can guess. But tell me, it relates to your chief?
He has decided.
Oh, when did you hear?
He informed me of his final decision this afternoon.
No more compromises?
Total repeal of the Corn Laws.
Oh, it's almost too wonderful to believe. At last, Ireland shall have her chance.
I've not made too much of it.
Oh, indeed you've not.
So Tony is no longer dejected.
Oh, a high wind will make a dead leaf fly like a bird. Now I do feel proud. I've longed for it, to have you leading the country. You will be soon now. The work was yours.
I've never seen you so radiant, Tony.
No, don't. Percy, no.
You see, Tony, my dearest, I'm flesh and blood after all.
You force me to be ice.
But how long do you expect to keep me in this rag puppet state of suspension?
We must have patience.
Dangling and swinging day and night?
Oh, a day will come.
You must imagine me superhuman.
I only know I worship you.
I can't be other than a mortal lover, Tony. I'm sorry.
Now, not a word of pardon. The hour's getting late. Come tomorrow, and we shall talk more rationally.
Very well. But Tony...
Tomorrow. Good night, Percy.
In the morning, the act of waking was for Dacier an immediate recovery of his emotional rapture of the night before. He walked briskly to his breakfast table, where his letters and papers had been laid for his perusal.
Nothing of vital importance among the letters. I'll glance through Mr. Tolman's journal first. I must read the papers of opponents more carefully than those of friendly editors. Tolman's is tricky, surprising now and... What's this? We have it on reputable authority that the Prime Minister will introduce total repeal of the Corn Law. Why, where could the fellow have gotten hold of that? Where?
And Percy Dacier, full of anxiety, left his breakfast untasted and dashed from the house. As he raced down the steps, he nearly collided with Mr. Quinton Manx, Constance Asper's uncle.
Young fellow, not so fast. I'd have a word with you.
Oh, Mr. Manx, I don't intend rudeness, but I must be off. My regards to Miss Asper.
I've got to talk to you. I want to know if there's anything in that article of Tonan's this morning. I read it at breakfast, and it choked me. I told my niece Constance...
Mr. Manx, I'm not responsible for newspaper articles.
I'm a senior gentleman and a landowner, and no minister intending to sell the country is going to treat me as sheep. I want to know if he intends total repeal.
I'm sorry, I can't discuss it. No. I must keep an appointment.
If I let you go, will you come and lunch with me and Constance at 2? Will you?
Yes, only please excuse me now.
2 o'clock, mind?
You slept well, Percy?
Yes. And you?
I don't think I even dreamed. But, Percy, what's troubling you?
These journals. These everlasting journalists.
Is there anything to annoy you in the papers today?
You read Tonan's journal today?
I've not opened it.
The truth is, those fellows can now afford to buy right and left, corrupt every soul alive. There must have been a spy at the keyhole. I could swear it was not breathed to any ear but mine. Yet, there it is in the morning paper in black and white.
What is?
The thing I told you last night. Printed in a leading article, loud as a trumpet. They've got the facts.
Oh, is it of such very great importance?
Secret of state, you ask strange questions. Personally, my conscience is clear. I never mentioned it. Couldn't have mentioned it to anyone but you. To tell you the truth, I'm brought to a dead stop.
Oh, Percy.
Oh, don't take it so much to heart, Tony. I simply came to be calmed by your presence for a while. Give me your hand.
Oh, for heaven's sake, don't touch me. Don't you understand?
Understand?
Well, you did not name it as a secret. I did not imagine it to be a secret of immense or immediate importance.
What are you saying?
Well, I'd not a suspicion of doing harm, Percy.
What have you done?
I went... Oh, I can't account for it now.
You went where? To Tonan's?
Yes, to Tonan.
Why?
I went to him.
Well?
I went to him. Why? Well, he was constantly sneering at my stale information, and I knew he paid for reports.
Then you betrayed me.
Percy, no. I had not a suspicion of harm.
You sold me to a journalist.
But I thought it was a secret of a day. You did not tell me to keep it secret. A word from you would have been enough. I was in extremity.
What is the meaning of that? What extremity?
I had no means. I could not write. I saw my ruin coming.
So, you took payment for playing spy.
Oh.
Do me the favor to name the sum. I'm curious to learn what my imbecility was counted worth.
No sum was named.
Have I been bought for a song?
Oh, Percy, I was poor.
You could have applied to me.
For money? Never. Percy, I would have died rather than consciously betray you.
I've often wondered how newspaper men got their information. Money, women.
Percy, if you suspect I've uttered one word before last night, you're wrong.
I can never trust you again.
Percy.
So, Goodbye.
As he closed the door, Percy Dacier shut Diana out of his life completely. Toward 2 o'clock, he remembered his luncheon engagement with Quentin Manx and dreaded the political questions that would be put to him. So absorbed was he with his problems that he did not once think of the great owner's niece and heiress, Constance Asper, until she stepped into a drawing room to welcome him. Constance Asper, who had been waiting, hoping to marry him for 3 years. But he found the sight of her not at all unpleasant.
But now I say positively, Dacier, how about that article?
Oh, spare us the politics, dear Uncle.
Thank you.
Oh, come, you can say whether there's anything in it.
I should not say if I could.
You asked for cabinet secrets, Uncle. All secrets are holy, but secrets of state are under a seal next to divine.
Oh,
Next to divine, you are the mouthpiece of my ruling principle.
I'm not prying into secrets. All I want to know is whether there's any foundation for that article. All London's boiling about it.
Clearly, the oracle for you is the editor's office.
Have you heard the choir at St. Catherine's?
Not as yet, but I shall plan to next Sunday.
Oh, do.
You two seem to be a pair against me. Anyhow, I think it's important. People have been talking for some time.
Yes, have you been sketching lately?
I generally fill a book in the spring.
Oh, posh.
May I see it?
If you wish.
I should like to at once. These are charming. Really?
Thank you.
Why, a sketch of my country place.
You are good enough to see a likeness.
You've taken it from my favorite point of view.
I am glad.
How much I should like a copy?
If you will accept that.
Oh, I could not rob you.
I can make a duplicate.
The look of the place pleases you?
Oh, yes. It is all impressively old English.
Does it look like a home to you?
No place more.
To me, it seems lonely.
Where I live, I feel no loneliness.
Would you consent to make the place less lonely to me if you love it?
The place?
Constance,
Is it true?
as yourself, could it be other than true? This hand is mine?
Oh, Percy.
Borrowing from the world's poetry to describe them, the long prayed-for summer enveloped the melting snows. But Diana Warwick was cast into a dark coldness resembling death. At the same time as the announcement of the wedding, reported to be the grandest of the time, she received word that Augustus Warwick had died. When a fortnight passed and Lady Dunstane had still received no letter from Diana, she went to London.
Thank heaven you have come, Lady Dunstane. My mistress has been lying on a bed for days, refusing food and visitors.
I will go in alone.
You will find the room quite dark and very cold. She will not allow me to light the fire, and she will die if she does not take nourishment.
Tony? Tony? It is Emmy. Yes, my Tony, it is Emmy. Stay with you, never to leave you. I have been happy. It is not hard to go. You must not talk of such a thing, Tony. I proved myself unworthy of him such a short time before we could have been united. But does a man pretending to love a woman cut the ties between them with such a blow? Is not forgiveness part of love? It is all my fault. You must let me die quietly. My Tony will live to know happiness. I have no more belief in it than
After many months at Copsley, with Emma's constant attention and friendship, Diana began to show interest in life again. And finally she came out of her dejection with a shrewder view of Dacia, though it was equally painful, for it killed her romance. In fact, now that she was at last free to find happiness in marriage, she scorned the thought of it. An example of this was a trip that Diana and Emma made with Mr. Redworth to the Crossways, he informing them that the new owner lent him the use of it.
I shall leave you ladies to be alone until dinner.
Thank you, Mr. Redworth.
I trust, Mrs. Warwick, you'll be back in your first home.
If I'd not...
Bye for now.
Tony, aren't you being a bit cruel with Mr. Redworth?
How, Emmy?
Oh, don't feign ignorance with me. Look about you. Mr. Redworth's servants in attendance. Obviously, he is the owner of the house. And he bought it to keep it exactly as you had it, and so he's done. Every room is filled with your knickknacks and possessions.
Since I did not ask Mr. Redworth to put himself to such trouble, I do not feel I owe him a debt.
He admires you so greatly, Tony.
Well, I wish he wouldn't. He is such an unbearably high of me. It hurts me. One may be too loftily respected, you know.
But you do like him.
I like him. That I can say. He is everything I am not. But now I'm free, Emmy, and the sense of being overesteemed imposes fetters, and I don't like them. I have been called a beauty. Rightly or otherwise, I have had a beauty's career, and a curious caged beast's life I have found it.
On their return to Copsley, Redworth was a constant visitor, and though Diana professed a humdrum friendship for him, she found his frequent visits somehow disturbing at times. And so, professing a desire to be alone more often, Diana rented a small cottage in the valley below Copsley. The next time Mr. Redworth called at Copsley...
Mr. Redworth, how nice to see you.
Oh, I trust you are sincere, Lady Dunstane. Sometimes I fear I endanger my welcome calling so often.
Oh, that would be impossible. But unfortunately, he was only in my company today.
Oh?
Diana has left me. She's taken cottage lodging at Solsall, about an hour's walk.
I see.
One of her wild dreams of independence. Are you disappointed?
I am.
Diana's passing the day with the Pettigrews, who have taken a place near here for a month. She's promised to dine at Coxley if she returned in time.
Perhaps I might walk down to the valley for her and bring her back.
If you do not mind the walk, I should be indebted to you.
The walk I should enjoy even without Mrs. Warwick's company, but... well, it looks as if we'd have a lovely sunset for the journey back.
Oh, it was a wonderful walk we had yesterday, Emmy. Sol was in his glory. Mr. Redworth said he'd rarely seen so wonderful a sunset.
You seem to have been inspired by Sol, my dear. Oh, you do like him, don't you?
If you mean Sol, I adore him. If you mean the mortal man, I think him up to almost all your hyperboles, as far as men go. Not to admire him would argue me senseless, heartless.
And you make him the butt of your ridicule, Tony.
I don't really mean to. It is an honor to call him friend. And I do trust he will choose the pick among us to make her a happy woman, if she's for running in harness.
Oh, Tony, why are you this way? Don't you realize you are the only woman he could ever choose?
Emmy,
yes, you. It's to the woman he loves that he cannot show himself as he is, because he is at her feet.
But marriage, dear Emmy, is marriage to be the end of me?
And are you steering so particularly well by yourself?
Miserably. But I can dream. I wanted a hero, and the jeweled garb and feather do not suit him.
No, but here is a true man. And if you can find me any of your gemmed heroes to match him, I will thank you. He came one day to ask me if I felt the sum he then had was enough to ask for your hand. And I had to tell him you were engaged.
Emmy.
The man has never wavered in his love of you since that day. He has had something to bear.
And he bore it, Emmy. Well. And he went on building a fortune. Whatever he does well. But Emmy, does he know everything about Dacia? I shall not have to go through that frightful...
He is a man with eyes awake. And, my darling, he trusts you. He loves you. Give yourself frankly. You see it clearly before you.
I do, and yet I'm frightened.
Your business is to accept life as we have it. He's coming by to escort you back to your cottage.
Oh, I know. And I almost feel like running the opposite way. Yes, Danvers?
Pardon, madam. Mr. Redworth has arrived.
Well, Emmy, here goes old Ireland.
This is quite a wind.
You foretold this gale.
Oh, well, it did not require a shepherd or a skipper for that.
Oh, your grand gift will be useful to a yachtsman.
Speaking of yachting, when I've tried my new schooner in the Channel, she's at your command for as long as you and Lady Dunstane please.
But why should it be at our command?
Because I shall be in Ireland on government business.
Oh, we shall hardly feel safe without the weather-wise on board.
Oh, you may count on my man, Barnes.
What is the name of the new schooner?
I took a liberty.
With whom?
I named her Diana.
I'm honored.
Oh, the wind is increasing.
Yes. Makes the footing a bit unsure. I'll take your arm if you'd let me.
Oh, please do. I'll keep these branches out of your way. Oh, be careful of that falling branch.
Yes.
I have you.
Oh. Thank you.
It's hard to keep to the terms of our talk yesterday on friendship.
I've forgotten it.
Have you? Have you changed toward me? Could you possibly?
What I cannot do is to submit to be seated on a throne with your petitioning. As far as concerns this hand of mine, if you hold it worthy of you, it is yours.
Diana, my darling.
Oh, Thomas.
Diana, my own. We shall be married within a fortnight. Say we will.
Yes, Thomas. Yes.
Diana, darling.
Diana of the Crossways by George Meredith is one of the world's great novels brought to you each week by the National Broadcasting Company. Listen next week to the first episode of a two-part radio edition of Silas Marner by George Eliot. And don't forget that your local public library can be the source of countless hours of entertainment and instruction. To enhance your enjoyment of this series, we recommend the Handbook of the World's Great Novels, which you may obtain by sending 25 cents to World's Great Novels, Post Office Box 30, Station J, New York 27, New York. That's Post Office Box 30, Station J, New York 27. Diana of the Crossways was adapted for radio by Agnes Eckhart. The music was composed by Emil Soderstrom, and the orchestra was directed by Bernard Berkowitz. The entire production was under the direction of Homer Heck. Geraldine Kay was featured as Diana. The narrator was Jonathan Hole. Emma was played by Alma Platt. Sir Lucan by Donald Gallagher. Percy Dacier by Ken Nordine. Thomas Redworth by Larry Alexander. Constance Asper by Martha McCain. Quentin Manx by Arthur Peterson. And Danvers by Jean Juvelier. And this is John Conrad. This program comes to you from Chicago and is a presentation of the National Broadcasting Company and its affiliated independent stations. This is NBC, the National Broadcasting Company.